Hey guys, thanks for checking out this clip of Anatomy of the Church and State. Be sure to catch the full episode on Rumble or ChristiansForLiberty.com. Links are in the show description. One of my favorite chapters in the book is where it talks about why politics is important. I'm highly confused when and how Christians and churches got it in their head that we need to practice our faith in our own little bubble and stay away from influencing culture and politics altogether. What are y'all's thoughts on that? Can you explain the fallacy behind this thinking?
Well, I think one reason why churches have done that, aside from, I would say, probably erroneous views of something called two kingdom theology. But I think part of the reason why that was advised was because pastors, and church leaders didn't know how to deal with the polemics of left and right within their own congregations. And so they thought that they could solve the problem by just saying, don't talk about it. It was, in fact, I would say it is a form of self-censorship, before really censorship and canceling became very prominent. But I also think that it comes from this position of, I have no understanding of politics or civil governance, and so I have nothing to say on the matter, right? It's something that is distant from me and disconnected from me, and I want nothing to do with it. And so I'm just going to ignore it. And the sorts of things that we, as Christian libertarians tell people is, number one, yes, there's a lot of things that you don't necessarily understand about politics as it exists today. And that's partly due to the fact that it's, the state has invaded every aspect of our lives. And we don't actually understand those other aspects, right? So we don't understand, how to regulate medicine in a way that is safe and effective for people, right? And so we think, well, that's just the government's job. And so there's a knowledge problem there. But what we tell people is, the thing is that you may not be interested in politics, but politics is very much interested in you. And that's where, we have to have enough, understanding about what's happening in order to really make decisions about how to respond to it. Simply ignoring it is not going to make the problem go away.
Yeah, and we're called by the Savior to be salt and light. And that's not just about telling people the good news of the gospel, right? The good news of the gospel only makes sense in the context of the sort of the bad news of the law, right? And so we need to be correct on questions of right and wrong. And so, I think that if we look at some examples of believers in the Bible who were in prominent political positions, people like Joseph or people like Daniel, the way that they were able to be faithful in the context of that state apparatus that they were really ensnared by, but ultimately had some mastery of because God moved them through the ranks and put them in positions of authority. The way they did that was conspicuously, being conscientious, right? And, Daniel was, subjected to the death penalty, which was unsuccessful, of course, but because he was so committed to his principles that he would rather face death than compromise those principles. And so when we are going to be Christians outside of the church doors, right, like around other people that may or may not be Christians, we don't know, because if they go to church, it's maybe a different one than we go to or whatever. So that's the world as far as we know when we first see them. How do we do that? Part of that is avoiding injustice or the appearance of injustice in our own lives, because we don't want to, pollute the name of Christ, right? And make it look like, hey, I'm a Christian on Sunday during these certain hours when the praise team is at church. And then when I go out, I do what the world does. And so part of this is just getting those questions right, because it keeps us from preventing people from hearing the gospel, right? If we are pursuing injustice or we're indifferent to injustice, at least with the victims of that injustice, they're going to have a real hard time hearing us. right? If we're going to share the gospel message with them while they're being persecuted wrongfully, right? And so that is, I think, a big part of it is sympathy for the least of these and a recognition that we should receive them as we would receive Christ at our door. And part of it is just a recognition that our God is the author of right and wrong, of justice, of the perfect standard of justice. And if we are little Christs, right, if we're patterning ourselves after the pattern of Christ, that means that we should be absolutely conscientious about never causing offense against somebody else's rights or making them a victim. I just think that's critical to the Christian to not be the victimizer, right? We're on the side of the prisoner, not the imprisoner.